Prepare for an epic journey through treacherous seas, legendary battles, and unimaginable treasure. How did a humble boy from Wales become the most feared pirate in history? Will Bartholomew Roberts' thirst for vengeance lead him to ultimate triumph or devastating defeat? Stay tuned as we uncover daring heists, shocking betrayals, and the brutal final showdown that changed the course of piracy forever. Here on Eyewitnessed History. In the year 1682, as a fierce storm battered the rugged coast of Pembrokeshire, Wales, a cry pierced the howling winds. The boy born that night in the tiny hamlet of Casnewydd seemed destined for the tumultuous seas. His mother, cradling him close, whispered the name John Roberts into his ear, a name that would be remembered in infamy. His father, a man named George Roberts, could not have foreseen the path his son would take, a path that would lead him far from the peaceful Welsh countryside and into the heart of the Atlantic, where he would become one of the most feared pirates in history. At just 13, in 1695, John Roberts left the rolling green hills of Wales behind, setting out to sea. Little is known of his life for the next 2 decades, but it is clear that the ocean shaped him, hardening his resolve and sharpening his skills. By 1718, he had risen to the rank of mate aboard a Barbados sloop, his experience etched into the lines of his weathered face. The sea was in his blood, and though he was yet to realise it, his destiny was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. In 1719, Roberts found himself as second mate aboard the ship Princess, under the command of Captain Abraham Plum. The Princess was anchored off the Gold Coast of West Africa, near the treacherous shores of Anamabu. The humid air was thick with tension as the ship's crew went about their grim business, but Roberts' fate was not to remain tied to this vessel for long. One fateful day in early June, the Princess was overtaken by pirates. The attackers came swiftly and without mercy, their 2 vessels, the Royal Rover and the Royal James, flying the black flag of piracy. They were led by Howell Davis, a cunning and ruthless pirate captain who, like Roberts, hailed from Pembrokeshire. The crew of the Princess was given little choice: join the pirates or face a watery grave. Roberts, along with several others, was forced into the pirate life. At first he resisted, holding on to the last vestiges of his lawful past. But Davis, recognising Roberts' navigational prowess, soon took him under his wing. The 2 men shared more than just a homeland, they shared a language, which allowed Davis to confide in Roberts in Welsh, keeping their plans hidden from the rest of the crew. Slowly, the advantages of the pirate life became apparent to Roberts. The promise of wealth, freedom and power was too great to ignore, and he began to embrace his new life. The pirate life was not without its dangers, a lesson Roberts learned all too quickly. Just weeks after his capture, the Royal James was abandoned due to severe worm damage, leaving Davis and his crew to sail on the Royal Rover. They made their way to the island of Principe, where Davis, ever the strategist, hoisted the flags of a British man of war to gain entry to the harbour. For days they maintained the facade, but the Portuguese governor eventually discovered their true identity. In an attempt to capture the governor, Davis led a party ashore only to be ambushed and killed by Portuguese soldiers. The crew, now leaderless, was thrown into disarray. A new captain had to be chosen, and the lords of the crew, the senior members with the right to nominate a successor, put forward a surprising candidate, John Roberts. It was unusual for someone so newly recruited to be given such authority, especially considering Roberts' initial reluctance. But his skills as a navigator and his strong, outspoken personality made him a natural leader in the eyes of the crew. Roberts accepted the role, declaring, "If I must dip my hands in muddy water, better it be as a commander than a common man." And so, John Roberts became Bartholomew Roberts, the captain of the Royal Rover. Roberts wasted no time in proving his worth as a captain. His first order of business was to avenge the death of Howell Davis. Under the cover of darkness, Roberts led his crew back to Principe, where they landed silently on the shores. The night erupted in violence as the pirates attacked, killing a large portion of the island's male population and plundering all they could carry. The success of this raid solidified Roberts' command and earned him the loyalty of his crew. Soon after, Roberts captured a Dutch Guineaman and a British ship named Experiment, adding to his growing reputation. With his ship now well provisioned, Roberts faced a decision: continue raiding in the East Indies or turn towards Brazil. The crew, eager for new conquests, voted for Brazil. Crossing the Atlantic, Roberts and his crew sailed along the Brazilian coast, their eyes peeled for potential prey. They soon encountered a fleet of 42 Portuguese ships in Todos os Santos Bay, waiting for their escorts to guide them to Lisbon. Roberts seized the opportunity, capturing one of the vessels and coercing its master to reveal the richest ship in the fleet, the Sagrada Familia. This ship was laden with 40,000 gold moidores and jewellery intended for the King of Portugal, including a cross set with diamonds. Roberts and his men boarded and captured the Sagrada Familia, a feat that only added to their growing legend. Their ship now bursting with treasure, Roberts sailed to Devil's Island off the coast of Guyana to divide the spoils. But his fortunes would soon take a turn for the worse. While Roberts and a contingent of his men were off pursuing a brigantine, Walter Kennedy, whom Roberts had left in charge, betrayed him. Kennedy stole the Royal Rover and the remaining loot, leaving Roberts with only a sloop, which he renamed Fortune. With his forces diminished, Roberts knew he had to rebuild. He quickly drew up a new set of articles, a pirate code that he and his men swore to uphold on a Bible. This code governed everything from the division of plunder to the punishment for infractions, ensuring a strict but fair order aboard the ship. In February 1720, Roberts's luck began to change. He was joined by a French pirate, Montigny La Palisse, who brought with him another sloop, the Sea King. Together they continued their raids across the Caribbean, but trouble was brewing. The island of Barbados, fed up with the pirate menace, outfitted two heavily armed ships, Somerset and Philippa, to hunt down Roberts and his men. On February 26th, the two pirate sloops encountered the Barbadian ships. The Sea King quickly fled, leaving Fortune to face the brunt of the attack. After sustaining considerable damage, Roberts managed to escape, but not without a heavy toll. 20 of his men succumbed to their wounds during the retreat to Dominica. Angered by this loss, Roberts swore vengeance against the people of Barbados and Martinique. To symbolise his vow, Roberts commissioned a new flag. It depicted himself standing triumphantly with a flaming sword, two skulls beneath his feet, one labelled ABH for a Barbadian's head, and the other AMH for a Martiniquean's head. The flag was a grim reminder to his enemies of the fate that awaited those who crossed him. The Newfoundlands and the Caribbean campaign, Roberts and his crew sailed north to Newfoundland, where they continued their reign of terror. In June 1720, they raided the harbour of Ferryland, capturing a dozen vessels. But it was in Trepassey that Roberts made his most significant mark. As he sailed into the harbour with black flags flying, panic spread among the 22 merchant ships and 150 fishing vessels anchored there. The crews abandoned their ships in fear, leaving Roberts and his men to take control without a fight. Roberts was furious at the cowardice of the captains. Each morning he fired a gun, summoning the captains to his ship. Those who failed to appear had their ships set ablaze, a fiery spectacle that illuminated the harbour. In the weeks that followed, Roberts captured several French ships, including one he equipped with 26 cannons, renaming it Good Fortune. With this powerful new vessel, Roberts' fleet grew once more, but his need for vengeance was not yet sated. In September 1720, after careening and repairing Good Fortune on the island of Carriacou, Roberts renamed the ship, you guessed it, Royal Fortune. He sailed to St. Christopher's, where he brazenly entered Basse-Terre Road, black flags fluttering and drums beating. The sight of the pirates was enough to make every ship in the harbour strike their colours in surrender. From there, Roberts continued to pillage and plunder, capturing up to 15 ships off St. Lucia in just 3 days. It was during this time that Roberts reportedly captured and executed the governor of Martinique, hanging him from the yardarm of his own 52-gun warship. By the spring of 1721, Roberts's actions had brought maritime trade in the West Indies to a near standstill. Seeing new opportunities, he set sail for West Africa, arriving at the Cape Verde Islands in late April. His ship, Royal Fortune, had become leaky and was abandoned in favour of another vessel, which Roberts renamed Royal Fortune. In June, Roberts arrived off the coast of Guinea, where he captured 2 French ships and commandeered them for his fleet. He continued along the coast, capturing the frigate Onslow, which was transporting soldiers to Cape Coast Castle. Onslow was converted into the 4th Royal Fortune, a ship that would serve as Roberts' flagship in his final days. Roberts' piracy along the West African coast continued, his fearsome reputation growing with each raid, but the end was drawing near. On February 5th, 1722, while careening his ships at Cape Lopez, Roberts' fleet was discovered by HMS Swallow, a British warship commanded by Captain Challoner Ogle. Mistaking Swallow for a merchant vessel, Roberts sent Ranger, one of his ships, in pursuit, but Swallow revealed her true identity, opening her gun ports and unleashing a devastating broadside. Ranger was quickly overwhelmed, her captain James Skirmer severely wounded. The remaining pirates surrendered, leaving Roberts with only his flagship. On February 10th, Swallow returned to Cape Lopez to confront Royal Fortune. Roberts, ever the defiant captain, dressed in his finest crimson waistcoat and feathered hat, prepared for battle. But the engagement was brief and bloody. As Royal Fortune attempted to sail past Swallow, a single broadside struck Roberts, killing him instantly with a shot to the throat. His crew, loyal to the last, honoured his wish to be buried at sea. They wrapped his body in the ship's sail, weighed it down and cast it overboard. The battle raged on, but without their leader, the pirates' resistance crumbled. Royal Fortune was captured, and the era of Bartholomew Roberts came to a sudden, violent end. The death of Bartholomew Roberts marked the beginning of the end for the golden age of piracy. His crew, numbering 272 men, were captured and brought to trial. Of these, 54 were condemned to death, while others were sold into slavery or sentenced to indentured servitude. The British Crown rewarded Captain Challoner Ogle with a knighthood, the only one ever given specifically for actions against pirates. Roberts's death sent shockwaves through the pirate world, signalling that even the most feared captains could not escape the long arm of the law. Though his life was cut short, the legacy of Bartholomew Roberts, John Roberts of Pembrokeshire, his name forever etched in the annals of pirate history.